Yes, I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that this building is planted on. I'm a Cullowly Murrawari man. Cullowly from southwest Queensland, runs from Quilpie down to Thargomindah and west of the border country, and that's my father's land, and my mother's side is from the Culgo River to the Paroo. So I was born and bred in Charleville and raised on the back of the rivers, and my dad and them were all cattlemen and worked in areas of looking after bores and windmills and in those days. We talk about what we are and who we are as part of traditional custodians of the land that we lived and worked with. And after growing up out there and seeing how it all worked together, and I remember the bore drains, I think there was thousands of kilometres of them. 96% went back in the ground, 2% went to the stock, and 2% went to the sky. This has been happening for over 100 years. So when you look at the Great Artesian Basin, for our people, all the sacred springs that were there. Now I was out in country at Mummaderi, which is South Thargomindah, with climate change. How interesting they are. And they said they're going to give the pastorers $150,000 a year for 10 years to close off some of his paddocks and let the mulga and the trees grow back. I said, what about us fellas? Oh, you can come and camp here if you want them. He said, well, there's no water in here. He had 5 bores operating. And as we drove around, you can see wet patches big as this room on the ground. He said, oh, I've capped 5 of them, and I pump out of one 50 kilometres of pipeline. Oh, duh. And I said, so you're saying that you've capped off 5 bores, you're pumping out of one, you're pumping. Now, when I was a young fella, all this bores just a free flow. They don't anymore. He's pumping 700 foot to get in 50 kilometres of water to his paddocks, which he's cut off and put in troughs, which leak, so we got the same turmoil. And I took him for a walk around country, and I said, see these white rocks up here? They're tool-making centres. He said, what do you mean? I said, our people used to make tools here, and that rock follows it down into a crevice down there, a lot of women stuff there, women business. I understand, I'm a cultural heritage director, I know what I'm talking about. And he went, oh, I didn't know, I've been here over 20 years. I said, yeah, but you're running cattle and counting dollars. That's all you're doing. I said, we're not. We're traditional people looking on country. He said, well, all these big creeks here, and we're talking big coolibah trees, 8 and 10 foot wide. You know, beautiful big coolibahs. And as I walk along the sandy creek, I showed him a tool-making place, a stone oven, clay ovens, and underneath the log in the dirt was a grinding stone. I dug it out and rolled it over and showed him. He didn't even know what he was talking about. He said, why is it dry? We haven't had rain for 4 years. I said, no, you've sucked all the water of the ground, mate. These are natural spring creeks. Why would our people be camping here? Every 10 or 15 yards we camp. And these ovens you have here are all ovens that our people used to hunt and gather here and the natural springs, because up the hill they're about 5 miles away is a tool-making centre. Bring it down here, they camp in, hunt and gather, and all the waterways here. It's not because you hadn't had rain for 4 years. I said it's because the Artesian Basin has been abused. I was out there a few weeks ago seeing Mum, poor old bugger, she's lost her mind, she don't remember anything. And in the bush, they're still running their taps and hosing their lawns. It's running down the drain. You know, the western towns are still doing this. So they think it's there forever. They don't realise that councils are pumping it out of the ground 600 foot. So it's very important that our springs have been protected, but they're not. And as you see, I put this up here this morning. I was sitting here listening to the speakers, and I wrote that. Just off the top of my head, I'm not educated, but I do happen to know a little bit. So, you know, great ripping of the Earth's energy, which gives death to the land, greed. And fracking, which I'm learning a little bit about. I don't know much about it. I've just done a bit on the internet. I'll Google it and have a look around. And it tells me what they've done in America, different parts of Europe, and how it's opened up the land, and it's now causing, in Kansas especially, it's causing earthquakes. So you can imagine out in far western Queensland, where all the oil and gas is on our lands, they keep pumping and opening it up. What's going to happen? They'll have earthquakes in Cunnamulla, which will be unusual, won't it? So that's it. So I said, fracking. for rights taken and to cease knowing of intellectual knowledge, now known as greed. So they both run together. So as a traditional man, I'm knowing on country and how it seems and how it fits that all our traditional springs are gone. There's nothing left. But all our campsites are still there. The way we used to live and where we camp is still there. Everything's still there. And all this fellow done was run cattle over it. So when I showed him that, I said to the budgety people who are there right on that same boundary, I said, I went and seen the old uncle and I said, you ought to get that protected. Native title they talk about. I've heard brother talk about native title. It's a descendant determination, which means prior colonialism. So we can go out and hunt, gather, sleep on country, but there's no water to sleep on. There's no fishing to do. But we still got to ask mining, pastoralists, energy, can we come and camp on our lands? IUA, as brother spoke about, Indigenous Land Use Agreements. Again, we're still screwed to that table. But thank you very much. Come out and have a look and have a yarn. Yeah, mate, ring us up and say you can come and camp on country. But you can't go there because we put a road there, and you can't put your own road in, you can't put a fence in there, you can't put that in there. Woo, 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 bullock, I said. This is native title land, and we have consent of determination. Yeah, pre-colonisation. So, okay, you fellas, you all move off the land. We'll let it grow back to Mother Nature give us. Let our springs fill. We'll go back and do ceremony. We'll go back and live in country. And we all should be happy. Then it comes down to the dollar again, doesn't it? We lose sight of who we are, what we are, and where we are. But as traditional people, the Great Artesian Basin kept our families alive for a couple 100,000 years. Because I've got DNA to prove that anyway, so anybody wants to check, I've got DNA. So I'm part of the world genographic, because I knew that we didn't come out of Africa because it was too far to get to here. So our people have been here since the start of the dreaming, as Sister spoke about, the start of the dreaming. So, when you think about the Great Artesian Basin, it's the giver of life. And protection of this with our trees is part of the life. And as I drove around this person's property, there was 100-foot bloodwood trees dying. He said, see, mate, there's no water. I said, you've taken it out of the ground, brother. You've taken it all away and let it go. 100-foot bloodwood trees dying. And when you see that, and the climate change says, well, we'll block this paddock off, the rain will come. And only one thing they said, you see the flowers? This is March this year. Big rain coming. He said, oh, when? I said, you watch Mother Nature bring it. Mother Nature said that she'll hose them plants when they need a drink, because you took the water out of the basin. Oh, so what happened about a few weeks ago? Run all the rivers, flooded all the area, great rain. See? They said, oh, just out of a flower you got that. I said, well, it don't come out anywhere else, mate. Mother Nature, the trees are very important for us. The flowers, the animals are important. When you see the animals move, you know who they are. You know what they are. They tell us a story. The trees tell us a story. Our native fruits, this time of year, the weather changes. Nah, poor old government fella, he got no idea. Poor fella. But he won't talk to us. He won't walk with us. But the climate change is coming in and they want to pay the white fella again. He could set a big camp up for us. We'd come out, we'd fish, we'd clean, we'd get rid of all the feral cats. There's thousands, there's millions of them in the bush. We camped one night on the river there, and I think there was more cats in the camp than there was anything else in the bush. You know? So it's more rubbish they got here. And then all the plants they brought for their great big Western Queensland, big agriculture cattle properties. Then all went broke. I left it, so now they're feral. So we've got all that stuff as well. So they're taking water where they don't need it. So that's how important it is to me, is to understand that the trees reverse back the water, the atmosphere, everything comes. And as a human, we should be able to share that in 100% way to make it better for the future of our nation and our people and the human race, not the way that's happened now.
Can you tell the Tribunal and the people here present today what you would like to see happen in your area, the area that you have a responsibility to care for, the Great Artesian Basin community, so that it can continue to thrive, evolve, and exist in the future?
So my thought on that would be, we all go to Quilpie, I'll grab our walking shoes, and we walk down to the corner country. Because my land runs from the Bulla River west of the Cooper Basin. We're connected to the Wongamara group, which goes down to Lake Eyre, Lake From. I'm connected to the Pintinjara, Southeastern Arunda, and Minika to the top. And to the south we go to the Barkindji, Tibbarara, west of the Mutawari and all the areas. I'd like to see them all get up the top end and we walk so they can see. Sometimes you need to open your eyes. Pictures might give you an idea, but unless you're there, I've been all over this country, I know. Unless you're there walking it, you're not going to feel it. And when you walk along and say, how did your fellas survive here? Natural springs, we had water, we could go to where the water was. So we start from Corpy, walk down all down the river systems, get into Thargomindah, and we'll see if harvest ain't dead time we get there. Because the water, so what we need to do is walk, look at it, talk to mining, which is hard because I've heard the stories about the forestry, so what chance we got with the mining? But if we need to go down, we need to walk that country, need to breathe that country, need to live that country, and need to see where the water used to be and where the water can still be if we allow Mother Nature to bring it back to what she wants to be, to give us a life if we give her a life.
I read somewhere that, and I didn't know this, that when the springs were there, certain animals were safe to come to that water because they could also get away from that water and get away from predators. But apparently with the increasing number of boars, more of the other animals can be kind of surviving in places they didn't used to, and they'd wipe out little animals that used to hide. And it's kind of messed up everything, both the lack of water and, you know, the increasing number of boars. Can you just talk a little bit about the kind of the life of the wildlife around those springs?
Ken, this picture up here is woman's business. The white red ochre is one of the prettiest red ochres you ever seen, and we walked all this country as part of the seismic lines, so they couldn't walk over our native title land. And different areas where the spring is, you can see the different bugs, the guanas, the little brown lizards. We're up in the open country where they put the boars up. Well, it's just open up for the eagles, it's opened up more land for them. The kangaroos go to there, where they should be going to there. It's upset a lot of the habitat. As you know, the story of the wolf in Yellowstone. Took him out, everything went wrong. Here, they put more waterways in. So they said, there's more kangaroo, let's go and kill them. Well, it's like you give all us more big feed at we'll go to one of them big places, you get all free tucker. And you all line up. So while all that's there and you keep eating, you're not going to go up over there. So virtually all these waters that where our springs were, and all the ones where they bored into, has given different areas where the birds can get to, but our animals can't. Because a lot of animals lived in these crevices and lived in where the food was. So the water get the flowers, they give everything, and then all other birds come in, little birds, and they survived in that bushland. They had nests and everything. Well, now they're gone, and we walked that country. I think we're there for 12 weeks, and we've done 600 metres apart, crisscross, and we've done 10 mile a day each way. So when you see what we're seeing, and all this water was a bit left there because of the rain we had the night before, but other than that, there was no water. So there's no birds, there was no snakes, there was no lizards, but up around where the boarheads were, and the water holes are big as on the ground, a few little trees shot up. Well, the birds have moved into there, but also the other predatory animals moved in. So that's the ecology of the place has changed too. So do we have that part of the ecology of the world where the animals change their outside inside to survive in that part, like a lot of the chameleons around the human race? As said the brother this morning, my mother always told us birds of feather flock together. Today we see trying to see emus walk with porcupines. That answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Irene?
Mary.
Oh,
Oh, no, good.
Mary?
What was I going to say? Your mob out there, what is everyone doing about sort of trying to correct that, bring back balance? Do you know, could you talk about some of the things that are happening?
Well, I'm afraid the greed's got us, mate.
Eh?
The greed's got us, because the mining has been offering to pay people walk on country, which they did for us last year. So if there ain't no money in it, they don't want to go. So unless you live on country, which part of the determination is live and work on country and have a presence on country, they said, oh, who's going to pay me to live there? So a lot of our people that are removed to missions and areas away from the West, and the ones that live there, well, I'm 60-year-old, so I've taken over from Dad's line. I'm the cultural heritage man from there, and the rest of the living country, they wouldn't know what to look for, what to do. It's a shame that our people, since the colonisation removals and the treatment of our families, they no longer live there. The ones that live there are doing a little bit. I was talking to a couple of the people before that the Tribunal mob are doing something down in their country. But as in Cully people, we don't anybody living actual in Targaminda, or we have one family living there, but he works for the Shire. So for someone to start something, I have to start something, or we have to start something to get it there. They said, well, let's get Targaminda station back, and what are you going to do with it? It's like the Roadrunner, mate. What are you going to do when you catch him? You know, we want people to go out and live in country, but what's out there? We was in the mining out there last year for the seismic lines, and the afternoon we come back to the camp and they said, oh shit, we can't get Facebook. You know, where's the closest tower? And then we drive on one day, and it's a true story, and we're going up over this hill, running the seismic line, and all the phones buzzed. 4-drive doors flew open everywhere, and everybody talking on the mobile phone, 2 hours south of Eromanga towards Targaminda, picked the signal up. We're trying to get him back in the car, but yeah, I'm sorry that it was just, Facebook has taken over, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
One quick question from Irene. Yep.
I'm just interested in your thoughts on whether you see any pattern or in your country, or any relationship with the drying up of the springs with, say, the impact of Roxby Downs, one of the largest uranium mines in the world, and the enormous amount of water that they've been extracting since, the 1980s. Do you think there's any connection between that? And if you think there is, do you have any thoughts on any dialogue amongst other First Nations peoples, say for example the Arabana, whose country's been impacted?
As on that point, I'm thinking we're looking at, we're all got to stop and have a look. We're just letting the mines come in because there's money in it. If we have to go back to the traditional way as part of determination, well, I don't know much about fracking, but apparently they use the water to bust it open to get out the coal and gas, or the oil and gas. So our people need to be educated. I think the best thing around, there's no education in it. And even our mobs, we haven't been educated. I'm about the only one that knows a little bit about it, but I don't know a lot. But I'm willing to go in the country and do it. So if you're talking about the big use of water around the Great Artesian Basin, I think as we come from Mount Isa right down, where it all goes, I think into South Australia, all the mines are, it's got to be bad, it's got to be turned into, something. But we've got to be educated, we've all got to stop and think. But how to get governments to stop and think is to say, well, there's no water, there's no food, there's no trees, you die. Whether they say it in their glass houses that they don't want to do it. But that's something I can see, mate, yeah, because we need education.